Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a podcast that introduces you to the presenters at the Caring Conference, our Courageous Acts, which happens November 12th. And I'm thrilled and delighted to have you meet Elizabeth Miller, who's one of our presenters. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Denise. Thanks for having me.
So Elizabeth is a multi-year presenter. She has a lot of experience being a part of our event. She had joined us for the very first National Caregiving Conference in 2016 and then continued presenting. She started a business called Happy Healthy Caregiver in 2015. She's a podcaster, she's a blogger, she's an influencer, and she's one of our certified caregiving consultants. So Elizabeth, it's great to have you join us again for one of our events. And
Thank you.
I love your topic because we're talking about our courageous acts, and you've tied it into the courage to have difficult conversations. Tell us how you figured that out as such a nice way to think about courage. It also happens during our conversations.
Well, I lived it, I guess, is the answer. My sister, I was talking to my sister years ago when I was in the throes of caregiving with my husband and I in the sandwich generation. And my sister was talking about how she needed to have a courageous conversation with her employee about something that she didn't want to have. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's what these are. So I'd actually wrote a blog post years ago about it because I was in the midst of having these courageous conversations with my parents. And what is a courageous conversation? It's basically anything where you feel uncomfortable, but it's highly necessary to have it. For some reason, I look at it like the risks of not having it outweigh the pain or misery of having the conversation. So at the time, it was, talking to my parents about, in the past, I had had them about downsizing their lifestyle, moving closer to family. And then, they started to get more serious about moving mom into assisted living to get more help. Having my mother-in-law stop driving because she was a risk to the people out in the street. Having my brother take medications. Like there are all these important things that we need to have in order for caregiving season to even work. And they're yucky conversations, but they're important.
So I love how you're going to help us have these courageous conversations and that we are the catalyst for these. So you're going to help us figure out how do you start and continue these courageous conversations. I'm just curious, when have you been on the other side where you notice that someone has come to you and invited you to have a courageous conversation?
Interesting. Well, I know the first thing that comes to mind is, and maybe not necessarily caregiving related, but it was definitely probably a part of it was my husband, having been married now 25 years, we've learned each other's emotional ups and downs. And I remember one time he came to me and he's like, I think something's going on with you. Maybe you should need to go to the doctor to see how things were going. And what was going on is I was crying very easily. I was getting overwhelmed by my list. And so long story short, he really had those conversations with me and said, let's just check this out. Let's just make sure. And that led into, getting into a plan where I take medication. I talked to a doctor about, and I didn't take the medication right away. I was resistant, but I said, well, let's try this and let's set a time period of when I think this might be better. And then, it was 6 months or whatever, 6 weeks, and it wasn't better. And so then we tried the medication. And so I have generalized anxiety. I'm a pretty intense person. So, and that just kind of helps smooth out the edges. But it was really that conversation with him that got me there. Otherwise, who knows? I might be in a puddle on the floor somewhere. Yeah.
That's so interesting. And I think it's important for us to remember that we can be the one who starts, but we can also be the one who is involved, in essence, receiving someone's, hey, I want to be courageous in talking to you about something. And if we remember both sides, I think it helps us be compassionate.
I love it. Do you have an example, Denise? I'm curious.
Oh my gosh, probably like 5,000. Let's see which one. I think with my business, people have said, what if you tried doing something else? Meaning, what if I used to publish a monthly newsletter, and my sister would say, what if you just did it quarterly? Maybe that would help with your stress. I never did actually do that, but I appreciated her coming to me and saying, I see the stress, I see the toll, I see the worry. I'm wondering what you think about this. And I also think it also has been around weight too. Someone coming to me and saying, I'm just concerned about what I see happening to your body. And I'm wondering, what can we do to support you? And I think you feel so vulnerable, don't you? When someone comes to you with those kinds of conversations, you think, oh my gosh, I was hoping that no one else knew this. I was hoping I was the only one and that I was able to go through life being the only one that knows this. And it's hard when someone says, I see this too.
Mhm.
Let's talk about how this could be better for you.
Yes. In a way, the physical ones, I guess we can be grateful that people see them. There's a lot of things that go unseen, with mental health and addiction and things like that. So it's I hate those conversations about weight in particular, but it's like, of course I'm already working on it. You're stressing me out even more, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is. And I think it just helps us remember what it's like when someone comes to us. I think it's all about the demeanor, right? And the intent. So, what do you think is important when we're the ones starting the conversation to keep in mind to ensure the conversation is a good one for both of us?
It's great. Um, I have learned through trial and error, some things that worked and some things that don't work. And so that's basically what I do, is just share what has worked for me and potentially worked for others. I think some of the key things are just to be specific and factual happening. If you've got, if it's medication, hey, I've noticed that this is, you've got 3 days where we haven't taken it. So be specific. I think also using I language is really important. I feel, this versus the blaming, kind of point the finger, you. I also think, to your point, like these can be highly emotionally charged conversations. And if you're wanting to get a resolution and that's kind of heightening, it's not a productive conversation anymore. And so know when to kind of like cut your losses and say, okay, let's just let this lie for a little bit and come back to it when we're ready. And pick your timing too. You don't want to do it in the middle of something that's already derailing. It's like, you want it to be intentional. I like to write things out. So I give myself a little script. These are some of the key things. This is what I'm willing to do, what I'm not do. These are my boundaries, and get their solutions. They may have something related to that they can contribute. Get their solutions first, actually, before you offer theirs. So those are some of the tips I think that have worked. Do you have anything to add, Denise, for you?
Yeah, for me, I have to remember it's not personal. So if I bring something up and the response is not helpful, meaning it spins them out of control, I have to remember to stay in control and stay calm. And in many ways, just let the spinning happen, let that release of whatever emotion is that they're experiencing. And then also remind myself, okay, they're spinning. I'm going to stay fully grounded and present. I'm going to acknowledge that this is a difficult topic. It's a difficult conversation. And I'm also going to be aware that maybe I thought it was the right time and it just isn't the right time. And that I've planted a little bit of a seed and that's good enough for right now. I can always revisit the topic later.
Those are good. I like that it's not personal. It's the worst sometimes is like you can have the conversation and it doesn't turn out the way that you want. You might not get what you want. That's called life and it's messy. And I know there were times like with my parents, I had that conversation about moving them closer to family. Let's figure this out. But we could not, they're adults. You can't make other people do what you want them to do. So sometimes you just have to also then just be like, well, I put it all out on the table. You gave it all you had, and accept the situation and adhere to your boundaries.
Absolutely. We cannot control someone else's decision
Mhm.
or how they want to live their life. It was really one of the most eye-opening experience with my parents when I was like, oh my God, I am doing to them what I was so frustrated about what they would do to me, which is I was trying to live their life, make decisions that I thought were best for them. And that was always what I railed about with my parents was I was like, gosh, I wish they would just let me live my life. It's different than their vision for my life, but that's okay. And then when I thought, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same thing, I really did change how I had conversations with them. I also think it's interesting. So you've had conversations with your parents and you have siblings. So I'm curious how you've worked through sibling consent, sibling engagement, sibling
Yes.
feedback. How do you work that out?
I think that's part of it too. You know, a lot of this, we've been talking about having those courageous conversations with aging parents, but it's also about getting the situation where you would like it to be in your caregiving life with your care team. You know, I would consider my siblings part of my care team with my brother and my parents at the time. And you know, we had we all had different strengths, we all had different weaknesses, and also with my immediate family, you know, in order for me to have the time and the space and the mental energy to be able to care, I needed them to pick up on some of the household family responsibilities more. So we had very diligent conversations. You know, I'll take the kids example for you know, hey, mom's working mom, dad's working dad, you know, we can just run rant crazy our whole lives. Or if you all, you know, help do the laundry, own your school deadlines, take this information, then we'll have more time for each other to spend as a family to do fun things on the weekend. So that was a very intentional conversation. Another one with our family members is like when after my dad passed and we had to bring mom to the Atlanta area, we had to define our roles a little bit. And it was, you know, what could people do from a distance? You know, one sister could help pay the bills. So we changed the billing address. You know, another sister was helping with my brother and his medical and financial paperwork and another piece of property that we had. And so, and I was more of hands-on. It was a little murkier with my brothers here in the Atlanta area, but we had to kind of continue to evolve there. And if I'm being honest, one of them wasn't a lot of help. I think a lot of times you have that in a family where, again, you get to that. It's like, well, it's not the way that I want it to work out. But when I step back away from it and look at it, he's consistent. Why did I ever expect it to work any differently? And so consistent is my word that kind of gives me peace. It's like, okay, that's consistent behavior. I'm going to accept it and move on and figure something else out.
Yeah, I have an oldest sibling who is consistent as well.
Yes, I know. And it just is what it is. And it sucks, but it, you know, we can't change it. So the only thing we can change is how we respond to it. And then what is fascinating is if sometimes they aren't consistent and they do dip in, and it's like, whoa, that was, you know, you try to positive reinforce it, but sometimes that doesn't work either. So
Yeah, it keeps us on our toes. That's how I kind of like to look
Mhm.
at it. So I'm curious if you are thinking about a courageous conversation that you anticipate having in the future.
Hmm. Well, I've started to dip my toe a little bit. My older sister, I can tell, you know, she had my mom's care for the last 4 years of her life, and it's been a year since mom had passed. I I know she's tired of being a caregiver, you know, and we have an older brother with a developmental disability that is in her care, and he's got some, you know, behavioral issues. And so we are starting to kind of have those conversations. It's like, look, this is not does not have to be your life. Let's brainstorm ways, you know, maybe it's time to look at another option that could be a fit for Tom as well as you. We're kind of trying some things out right now where my sister lives in Michigan. I've got a brother that lives down here in Georgia that's a bachelor. And so my brother with a developmental disability has been living the sunshiny months in Michigan with Susie, and then coming down here in the winter to give my sister a break and stay with my other brother. And then we're here to kind of, and then and nice things there. One of my sister's big worries is my brother being on the roads and the icy roads. And, that's a topic that they fight about a lot because he wants to go play bingo and go out to eat. And that removes that frustration because we just, we might get one snowfall here in Atlanta if we're lucky.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to understand what creates the tension. Because we want safety, our carries want independence. And that is automatically a tension-filled experience. And it's trying to find the compromise. And I love the compromise you figured out, which is, okay, then he just lives in weather.
Yeah.
Which is better for him when the weather is worse for him.
We have situations where like we all go to Michigan in the summertime when the weather's nice and we all want to be there. But my brother with the developmental disability, Tom is his name, hates messiness and being off schedule. And when everybody's there leaving their shoes around and, their glass in the sink, that can just set him off. And so a couple of years ago, we booked vacation for him where he goes into town. He stays in a 1-room hotel or a hotel room or in a little apartment, has a nice view of the lake, has things where he put them, and he's welcome to come visit and hang with the meals. And of course we invite him, but he prefers to not participate. So it just is too much for him. So that was, again, another thing. It's like, oh, how can we make this different and it be a win-win for everybody? And that was a financial thing, you have to kind of get over that. It's like, oh, well, it's too bad we have to spend this money, but better to do that and keep the peace among everybody.
So it's been a year, more than a year. Is it 13 months since your mother died?
Yeah, beginning of September of 2020.
Yeah.
This is her birthday.
Today?
Her heavenly birthday, yes.
Okay, happy birthday, Mom. Okay.
Yeah, she would have been 84 today.
So what has shifted for you now that you're 13 months out after her death?
Well, I think, what's obviously we miss her. There's always the grief things. Although I look at it like we had so many bonus years with her. I mean, she was, if you would have asked me back in 2015, I thought she was going to pass before my dad. So I know that the awesome care, particularly of my sister, these past 4 years has prolonged my mom's life. But so having missed her, but I also think what's amazing is I love having my sister back, like in some ways, yes, we still have this thing that we're working with Tom, but it's very different. It's not a hands-on all the time caregiving situation. So love that, she's golfing and she's doing her art and she's able to travel and explore. And so that seeing her, because she's, one of the top 5 people I love in my life, or 10 people. I love that, she's gets her life back. So for me, I don't know. The only thing that's really changed, and it hasn't really changed, is that I was going up there quarterly to help with Mom. And now I can not do that, but now I want to go up and just hang with my sister. And help with Tom. Tom needs less functional help, but just a nice diversion from the day-to-day mundane. And she's pretty isolated up there. She lives with my brother, but he's not a party to be around.
So what are you working on business-wise?
Well, I'm excited that, employers seem to kind of be getting the message about supporting their caregivers. So I've really been leaning into employee resource groups and trying to get them to invite me to come speak. That's been something that I've been working on. I also am continuing to reach out with partnerships. I love the idea of employers and corporations paying for support for caregivers. I'm love, and that allows me the freedom then to continue to do the podcast, to continue to write and share resources, but having someone else pay for it is great. So I resigned from my job in May. I've been doing this a little over 6 months. I did play quite a bit this summer. I did a couple caregiving retreats for No Barriers USA, helping to lead those. which are amazing. They're respite retreats for caregivers because they just need a recharge, a full recharge without spending their own money. And to go to these amazing places has been fun. And it also gave me the flexibility to be with my aunt when in the last 2 weeks of her life with my cousin who's a solo caregiver. I love that flexibility. So I enjoyed my flexibility a bit this summer, getting into it with speaking and partnerships. And then I also am thinking about exploring TikTok and sharing some self-care tips on TikTok, and doing a video course. I have not put one of those together. I have a couple of them recorded and a few more to do, but I think it's a nice way for people to tap in. Self-care is definitely my niche though. And I think what's interesting, Denise, is like when you first met me, it was really honed in on physical self-care. Because I think that was such apparent in my mom and dad and my mother-in-law, is like these were physical choices that they made to get them in the situations. Kind of where I was focused is on nutrition and exercise, and sleep even came a little bit later. But I really look at self-care for caregivers in 8 different categories now. I mean, it's, practical self-care, getting your paperwork together, learning how to have a courageous conversation, emotional self-care, practical, or we said that, spiritual, social, engaging with other people, professional, financial, so there's so many different areas that I'm enjoying exploring some of those more.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so I want to let our listeners and our viewers know that you're going to be presenting on November 12th. And it's about having courageous conversations. And your presentation takes place at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time.
That's right.
And Elizabeth is part of our amazing agenda of presenters who are really zeroing in on our theme, which is our courageous acts.
I love the theme.
Yeah, we're courageous every day. We do brave things every day. And it's so helpful when you see that, because then you don't judge your day. You think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was brave enough to get through that.
Mm-hmm.
Just has a nice little shift in your perspective. So Elizabeth, for our viewers and listeners who'd like to be in touch with you, what's your website address?
happyhealthycaregiver.com.
Nice and easy. Okay. Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Always great to connect. And I'll see you November 12th.
I'll be there. Thanks, Denise.
Thanks everybody so much for watching and listening. And go to careyearsacademy.com for more information about our conference. Thanks everyone. Take care.